If you've ever played a video game, at some point you've probably asked yourself how some of its logic works, because there are a lot of things in video games that just don't realistically make sense. Like, why is Mario able to jump 15 feet in the air and is able to smash brick blocks with his hands, but if he gently makes contact with a turtle or weird walking mushroom thing, he either dies or shrinks? Or why is it that when you get shot in Call of Duty, you don't die, you'll recover in just a few seconds, and if you do die, you'll just reincarnate somewhere else in the world? It's video game logic, and video games need to take certain liberties, not just so that the games remain fun, but also because it's necessary for certain games to fit into their genres. Like, if you were in a fight, you and the opponent wouldn't sit still while waiting for your turns to attack, but that's what defines turn-based RPGs. There's no point in overanalyzing video game logic and trying to make sense of it. So that's exactly what I'm going to do in this video for the Persona series, because I am obviously a big fan of this series, and these games would suck if they were realistic. But I'm going to point out weird logic that I've observed while playing these games anyway, and I'm going to start with the weapons. In Persona 1, pretty much all the weapons realistically make sense. You have swords, spears, axes, whips, throwing weapons, bows, gloves, and then you have all kinds of different firearms, many of which are based on real guns you've probably seen in some first-person shooters. Except this is an RPG about high school students using guns, and some of it takes place in the school. Let's just move on to Persona 2, because this is where things start to get a little weird. You have swords, boxing gloves, handguns, and guitar cases. Okay, well, these are special guitar cases that function as guns, kind of like a more awesome version of how the Mafia would hide their guns in instrument cases. And then we have two types of thrown weapons, knives and flowers. Flowers, which are used by June as a weapon. I mean, I don't know, maybe the idea is that when June uses them, he uses the thorns to cut the enemies, or maybe he holds it up to them and makes them sniff the poison or something. But these are classified as thrown weapons. So, does he throw them at them? Have you ever tried throwing a flower? It doesn't usually go very far, and it wouldn't do much damage even if it did hit anything. Or maybe he just lets the wind blow it. After all, June does specialize in wind spells. I don't know. And if they're thrown, why do the characters have a seemingly infinite supply of them? This is the case with the later games too. You never see them go back to pick them up or reload their guns, so maybe another power they get from their personas is an infinite supply of ammo. And things don't get much better when we get to Eternal Punishment. You still have swords and boxing gloves and guns, but you also have coins. Yes, coins as a weapon, and they're used by Balfu. Technically they're called finger shots, but just look at the icon and look at the names of these items, they're coins. I mean, I guess damaging an enemy with a coin does make more sense than with a flower, but doing so still requires a lot of force. Force that I don't think Balfu would be able to exert with just his fingers. Maybe his persona somehow gives him the ability to launch them with his mind. Maybe he's trying to be like Magneto.
And I'm going to move the coin. 1.
Man, that was a good movie. Now, I can't think of any weird or out-of-place weapon types for Persona 3, but I do have to question why the police station would be selling firearms specifically made for this 10-year-old humanoid combat robot. I'm guessing that they're supplied to them by the Kirijo group, but if that's the case, why not just give them to me? I mean, it's not like the whole operation is being headed by the heir to the Kirijo group or anything that the current head is fully aware and supportive of. But going back to weird weapons, in Persona 4, most of them still make sense as weapons, with things like blunt weapons for Kanji, kicking shoes for Chie, claws for Teddy, and then for Yukiko you have fans. I guess this really isn't all that outlandish. I mean, fans were sometimes used as covert weapons in ancient Japan, but using one effectively required a lot of practice. But who knows, maybe Yukiko practices this as part of her job, or maybe her persona gives it to her or something. Moving on to Persona 5, it also mostly makes sense. Well, except for the fact that all the characters use guns except for Morgana, who uses slingshots. Like, come on, out of all the projectile weapons you could use, you choose to go with slingshots? Technically they are weapons, but they're nowhere near as strong. At least in real life, in the game they're not that far behind. Which only makes it weirder, but I guess there also aren't a lot of firearms that Morgana would be able to hold. Though I do know of at least one firearm he could hold, the Colibri. Though I also have to wonder how weapon classification and specialization even works. Like, Joker uses handguns, but for some reason revolvers are in a category of their own and they can only be used by Makoto. In fact, why do characters limit themselves to a single type of weapon? Is this something that they discuss in their meetings? Who has a trademark over specific weapon types? And speaking of Persona 5, the weapons that the characters use aren't even real. Now, it's pretty clearly explained that because of the metaverse, they're able to function as if they were real weapons. But if that's the case, why do they limit themselves to realistic weapons? The only one that takes advantage of this is Akechi, who uses lightsabers and laser guns. Now that's making good use of the metaverse, but why stop there? Can you imagine how much easier things would have been for the Phantom Thieves if they had all pitched in a few 10,000 yen, gone to Etsy, and bought a Fat Man?
I won't let anyone take this. This proves that I am the...
And while I'm still on the topic of weapons, why is it that in order to start negotiation with demons, you have to knock them down, but if you fail by pissing them off enough, they just get back up and attack you? Like, they're down and we're all pointing our weapons at them. Maybe we should shoot them while they're getting back up. And don't even get me started on armor. In Persona 3, can someone explain to me why a baseball jersey offers more protection than a freaking bulletproof shirt? Or why the swimsuits and the high-cut armor provide more protection than that as well? And why would you even wear a swimsuit or something like high-cut armor into battle in the first place? While I'm at it, why is it that certain armors affect your appearance, but most don't? Like, I get to see Junpei and Akihiko in a British butler costume, or the females in generic maid outfits, but I don't get to see how anyone would look in an Amigo poncho. That's messed up. In Persona 4 Golden and 5, they made the armor separate from the costumes, but this actually makes even less sense because many of the armors realistically would not be covered up by most of the costumes. Like, how is Naoto able to wear a metal jacket under this very revealing costume that doesn't even completely cover up her butt? I could say the same about many of the armors and costumes of Persona 5, but there I'm actually a little more confused as to why they would even want to change costumes in the metaverse. Because isn't like half the point of the Phantom Thief costumes with the masks and everything to hide their true identities? Isn't that why they also use code names? Not that it really matters because they're hardly going to run into anyone in the metaverse, but if I were a Shadow, I would be a bit confused as to why the intruders are a team of teenagers wearing a medieval samurai uniform, a tracksuit, a steampunk robot costume, and a weird chibi mask. But that also brings up the question of how do they even change their costumes? When they enter a palace, their clothes just automatically change. But I guess after that, the metaverse just doesn't care what they do with their clothes. I mean, there's even a part in Shido's palace where some of the characters have to change into swimsuits that you have to get from inside the palace. I guess the ones that are part of the game just aren't good enough. And the funny thing is, outside of the dungeons and combat in Persona games, things get even more ridiculous. Like, the passage of time makes no sense at all. In Persona 5 Royal, after school, I can go to Kichijoji, buy some incense, take the train to Akihabara to buy some more stuff, buy some more junk from the secondhand shop in Yongen Jaya, then go to Jimbocho to buy some books from that same shopkeeper who just teleported there, head back to the school to hang out with Makoto, only to realize that I don't have any priestess personas on me, go to the Velvet Room to get one, but while there, change my mind, abandon my setup without pausing the game to go get dinner in real life, leaving Joker to stand in the cold for 2 hours, and then, when I get back, I decide to hang out with Kasumi and take her to the Tokyo Skytree. And until I do this, not a minute passes by in the game. However, if after school I immediately head to the batting cage to hit some balls, and then quit after just one round, it's already evening. In fact, in Persona 3, I can go on a date with Elizabeth, and this doesn't pass any time. But if I go on a date with any of my other friends, it does, or do anything else in the mall or in town. I think the worst thing about it is that on Sunday, or any other day where you don't have school, you better get any business you have in the dorm out of the way before you leave. Because as soon as you set foot back inside the dorm, it immediately becomes nighttime. You can literally walk outside the entrance, turn around, go back inside, then go back out again, and it will be dark. Like, imagine wasting an entire day because you had to go back inside after forgetting your wallet or your iPod or something. Also, is there a reason why when my friends want to hang out with me on Sundays, I can't check the TV before? Like, how pushy do they have to be that they won't even give you any time to check the shopping channel before meeting up with you? How about the fact that no matter which sports team I join, whether it be kendo or track or swimming, why is Kazushi always on the team and Yuko is always the manager? I guess the logic here is that they always coincidentally join the same team you do at the exact same time, except that doesn't make sense because at the time you've joined, they've already been in there for a while. Maybe they're all identical triplets with the exact same name that all join different teams, but then why do you only ever see one of them at a time outside of practice? Or maybe, when the protagonist opens the door to the club meetings, he's actually opening the portal to an alternate dimension where Kazushi and Yuko are always on his team, and after that, he's never able to go back. Hey, it wouldn't be the weirdest thing to come out of the Persona series. Maybe I should be asking more important questions like why the nurse doesn't actually help me when I'm sick or tired. He instead just makes me drink his weird Harry Potter concoction, which doesn't actually help. But you know what does help? Urinating. Yeah, every time I use the restroom, there's a chance it will improve my condition. So next time you're feeling sick or tired, just go to the bathroom and you'll feel much better. Also, how much of a coincidence does it have to be that in this dead MMO that Junpei gave me, the only other person playing just so happens to be one of my teachers? And why is it that they always announce they're shutting it down around the time I'm about to finish the social link? Come to think of it, there are a lot of social link related events that just happen to happen when you reach a certain rank. Does this mean that in Persona 4, if I don't start or advance Yumi's social link, her father won't die? Well, that's gonna make me feel a lot less guilty about not doing her social link the next time I play. Now, another thing that you could do in Persona 4 and 5 that you couldn't do in Persona 3 was take on a part-time job, which you can just show up to whenever you want, and you don't have to file any lengthy paperwork or any background checks, you just get hired. In real life, you basically need a PhD and 15 years of experience to get anything that pays above minimum wage. Believe me, I have a bachelor's degree, yet here I am making these stupid YouTube videos. I could also talk about how the cast is allowed to go on these crazy field trips unsupervised by adults, including going to a nightclub where they all get drunk off of the atmosphere, despite not being served alcohol. Actually, that's the real most unrealistic thing in Persona 4. The staff at a place in Japan actually giving a crap and not serving them alcohol. Also, considering that they enter the TV world through a department store, am I really supposed to believe that nobody ever sees them? I mean, I get that they always check to make sure nobody is looking, but you'd think there would be at least one time someone would walk in on them right as they're about to enter. In fact, wouldn't this sort of thing also be picked up by CCTV? And how do the staff react? Do all of them not find it weird that every day the same group of teenagers always enters the store, goes missing for a few hours, then comes back without buying anything? This is even worse in Persona 5, where before the Phantom Thieves get LeBlanc, they just meet in public places and openly discuss their Phantom Thief plans, yet nobody ever seems to overhear them. Except when it's relevant for the plot, of course. Speaking of, in Persona 5, Morgana sticks with you nearly the entire game and feels this need to provide commentary on everything you do. Even when you're in school, he hides in your desks and he gives you hints. First of all, does the guy behind me not question why there's a cat hiding in my desk? And second of all, I know people who aren't aware of the metaverse can't hear Morgana talking, they just hear him meowing. But does nobody ever hear him meowing? Even during the exams, when everyone has to be all quiet, Morgana talks to you and he gives you help. Yet, nobody hears him. And if Morgana is gonna provide unauthorized assistance with my exams, why don't I just give him the answer sheet and have him tell me the answers? Speaking of Morgana, I know the game explains why he's a weird cat thing that can talk, but exactly what kind of characteristics of being a cat does he have? Like, does he have all of his necessary shots? Does Joker ever take him to the vet? Has he been spayed? And if not, could he breed with another cat? Does he crap in a litter box? Because I don't see a litter box in Joker's room in LeBlanc. I also don't imagine that animals would be allowed everywhere that Joker takes him. Sometimes you can also hang out with the Velvet Twins, and does nobody ever react to the fact that there's a 9-year-old carrying a cattle prod? Or does anyone ever tell the principal that there might be something medically wrong with him because he looks like Jabba the Hutt? Actually, going back to the characters' looks, why are the members of the main cast seemingly exempt from the school's dress code? Chie gets to wear her green sweater, Junpei gets to wear his Treyarch hat, nobody seems to question why Aigis has what looks like a pair of headphones attached to her head, or her name. Come to think of it, when English-speaking players play the games and name their characters after themselves, the characters they're playing as are Japanese, but they have Western names now, and nobody seems to react to that. Though I guess it does make sense if you're playing the PS1 version of Persona 1. Then you have what I like to call cutscene logic, where characters will eat up hits or bullets in gameplay, but will be mortally wounded by them in cutscenes. I mean, I get that the characters are hurt, but is there a reason they can't be healed? In fact, why is it that when the protagonist dies in battle, it's game over? Like, nobody is able to revive me? Do the other characters just phase out of existence? Is that because the whole universe only exists as part of the protagonist's cognition? That would actually make a lot of sense. Well, that's about all the weird logic I can think of for this video, but I'm sure there are some I'm missing. Be sure to let me know in the comments what sort of weird logical observations you've made as a Persona fan. And also be sure to check out my other links in the description, be sure to rate, comment, and subscribe, and until the next video, I will see you all later.